Steffen, welcome to the Grin Gets Real podcast. I'm really excited to be chatting with you today and really starting to dive into a little bit of the customer journey mapping, especially from, sales to marketing.
Thank you for the invite, Katya, and I'm super happy to be here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's start with you just sharing a little bit about just kind of your experience with connecting marketing and sales departments together, like your experience with the customer journey. Tell me a little bit about you. You don't have to start with, kindergarten. Just
No, but I
catch
can,
me up
yeah,
to now.
yeah. So from my professional careers, ever since I finished university, I've always been working in B2B companies, and
Hmm.
predominantly B2B companies where the internet or digital played a large part of the go-to market.
Yeah.
So kind of everything I'm saying here, I'm biased by by that background. Then you can say my interest in marketing and revenue being joined comes from pain, failures, and then seeing that what happens when you're actually able to do that as well. My first job out of university, I was part of like a vintage music instrument platform where
Okay.
local vendors could put up their music instruments, and then it was super important that our you know our all of our guitars and drums, etc., came first on Google
Yeah.
when people are searching for these things. And we actually managed to do that exceptionally well, and we grew the traffic super much. But what we didn't manage to solve was actually to translate this increase in traffic. So we have like the 6-digit traffic numbers organically from Google every month,
Hmm.
but we didn't manage to find a valuable enough proposition to the customers, which would be these local guitar shops and drum shops, etc. So we didn't actually, create enough revenue, and essentially that business kind of went out of out of
Yeah.
business at some point. And I think that really opened my eyes for like you can be successful with different parts of the business, but if you don't see that dollar from your work, then at some point you're going to be in trouble. But yeah, I've also seen the good parts when you're actually able to find a connection between your marketing activities, or at least a very closely related functionality between when you do stuff and then revenue comes out of it. Then you can make, essentially you can make a whole company prosper, because when you spend money in marketing, you can clearly see that more money comes in from it, and then it kind of becomes almost like an investment where you just continuously want to put more money in, and you can
Yeah.
just see the stock going up. So it's just been my experience that whenever it's possible to show a quite clear impact on your company's revenue, then you're most likely a successful marketer. And also, like, speaking in these times where there's a little bit more economic turmoil, maybe marketing isn't gonna get shut down as fast, or people are not losing their jobs as fast, because it's clear to see for the organization that when Katya or Steffen does ABC, then they produce a revenue out of those activities. So that's why I always I'm a big speaker for trying to do as much as you can for finding that connection between your activities and producing the pipeline and revenue.
So I, as a marketer, love what you're saying. I think ideally, it's a language that all marketers know and understand, this attribution, trying to kind of make those connections that you're talking about, because it's true.
Yeah.
I wish that I could say, this is a really bad example, but this TV ad produced this, number to this dollar amount for my revenue, right? Like,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
this
yeah.
was the return on investment. But the truth is that doesn't always happen. We're not always able to connect that one to one. If it
Mm.
was that easy, we don't have bigger marketing departments. So like,
Yeah.
what do you say in the event of like a marketer coming up to you and being like, and basically asking you, well, how do I chase down attribution for all of my marketing efforts to show that we
Mm.
should double down and invest in, XYZ. Influencer marketing is a really great example of that. There's always this chasing
Yeah,
the dollar, trying to figure out this return on investment on, an influencer post. And while there are links and codes that are that one-to-one connection,
yeah.
how do you measure that?
That's super hard, and there is definitely stuff where the direct link is close to impossible to do, or at
Yeah.
least you need to add a bit of guessing. And I think the example that you give with influencers posting stuff on Instagram,
Hmm.
as you say, some might click the link, but others would just hit go directly to the Google and then type in whatever brand name
Absolutely.
that they just
Absolutely.
saw. And there it gets little bit more unclear about what's going on. But at least maybe you can try to be aware about what are at least the input sources, you can say, or the activities that you carry out.
Yeah.
So keep an overview of if, let's say, you're running 10 influencers, making sure that you know at which time do these influencers actually do posts. So if
Yeah.
stuff happens immediately after that, then you can at least say that there's a clear correlation between when somebody posted and what happened afterwards. But it depends a lot, on the different disciplines.
Yeah.
If it's in this world where like I come from and most of our customers are they are B2B companies, and they
Yeah.
run they have a large digital ad spend, and it's easier when when you have clicks because
Yeah.
then you can say this click came to the website, they downloaded an ebook, and then 2 weeks later that company ended up buying or stuff like that. And then there's other activities like like say you're in your influencer marketing, for example, where you also might want to be trying to record qualitative stuff where more
Yeah.
like mentions, like this person mentioned me, and then you as a marketer in your company, you should make sure to take that screenshot, so you have that screenshot so you can tell your company that you have a narrative about this person with this audience posted this thing where they directly mentioned us. That's a
Yeah.
valuable piece for us.
No, I absolutely agree. Now, eh, before we dig into that, because I don't want to get down that rabbit hole too far, because I will go down there because I have
Yeah,
follow questions to that. I do want to just kind of go back to just sort of the attribution of it all. There
yeah,
are a variety of attribution models. Which one do you think is ideal for a marketer? Or is it a combination? Or maybe there's a time to use last click and there's a time to use first click. Like,
yeah.
tell me about the attribution model.
Yes. So, like roughly, we can say to describe when you use an attribution model. Basically, before you apply any model, you want to make sure that you have as much data about the journey collected as possible. So, any model you would apply to only, let's say, 5% of the journey is gonna
Yeah.
probably say something wrong. So if you only have very limited information about what journey is this person or this company actually taking, then whatever attribution model you select is most likely going to tell you something that is not true. But
Yeah.
let's say in this state where you actually know 100% of all the touches that took place,
Yeah.
then you can talk about which attribution models to use. I think if you have long journeys, so think complex products,
Okay.
typical B2B sales, then I would be very interested in these attribution models that looks to describe some of the first touches, at
Hmm.
least as a marketer, because I want to understand what can I do more of that gets more of these customer journeys started. But if
Okay.
you have very very short journeys, like for some B2C products, then it's like last click might be just fine because it's something you can make a decision upon within like
Yeah.
one click. So in a very B2C world, if that's my product, then I would be kind of okay just using a last click model for a lot of cases.
You bring up such a really good point. I know that this. When you say it now, it's so obvious. Like if you do have a longer journey, which I think not at least a majority of the brands that I'm talking to, we
Yeah,
don't ever have these attribution conversations, but I do think it's really important, right?
yeah,
To your point, like to take a look at like what is it that you're evaluating
yeah,
to bring people that are bringing people to basically to your front door, right?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
how you're nurturing them along just kind of the customer journey. With brands that you work with, do you find yourself having to educate people on just kind of attribution in order to have that next level discussion of like, all right, now these are the qualitative and these are the quantitative metrics that we're going to take
Yeah.
a look at so that we can really prove or at least identify where we're getting the most revenue.
Yes, it is definitely a topic where you need to train the organization and to think like you need to go from thinking like single touch to multi-touch.
Yeah.
And what that means is that, most customer journeys has a lot of touches involved, even though your data is saying he clicked here and then they bought. They might have been exposed to five influencers before they clicked the ad, or
Yeah.
they might have read the newspaper or watching YouTube or stuff like that. A lot of things lead up to that decision for some products that are super complex. And then there is, say like just like a $50 sandal that an influencer posts about. This is
Yeah.
something that you can make a decision upon on the spot and buy it.
Yeah.
Here I can fairly expect that the journey is going to be very short, so I want to see an effect of that click immediately.
Yeah.
Whereas for our average customers, the journey from first touch to you buy something is
Yeah.
6 months or something like that. So when you come very late in that journey, it's much more the work of a salesperson than it's a click on a Facebook ad or a Google ad or a LinkedIn ad.
Yeah.
And when the journeys are long, that's when I think it's super interesting to understand, are there any of the first touches that we can kind of replicate to get started more customer journeys?
Yeah. Bringing more people at the top of the funnel, right?
Yeah, yeah. And,
Do,
and bring the right kind of people into the top of the
Why
funnel.
exactly?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
then it's not just a numbers game, right? It's really evaluating the quality of leads that you're getting through the front
yeah,
door, the quality of
yeah,
the web traffic that you're getting,
exactly.
and just kind of whatnot. Do you see? o- this is going to sound like a strange question, but do you see a kind of trend of where certain brands stop to kind of nurture the customer throughout the journey? Like if we're looking at it in comparison to the marketing funnel, for instance, right?
Mm.
There's a lot of top of funnel, which to me is the beginning of a customer journey, that middle of the funnel, which is like the
Yeah.
education piece, and then you actually make a sale. Do you see that there is a trend of like where brands need the most help?
I've kind of I've given a little bit up on funnel thinking, just because I
Tell
think
me
it's
why. Why
I
have you
just
given up on funnel thinking?
I think it's very hard to like it's very nice to think that there's such a thing as a funnel where people do A B C D
Yeah.
E F G, but I just think for a lot of cases B2C as B2B, it's not that rational or
Okay.
it takes longer time. So I think my best advice is just to, continuously post quality content in front of your target audiences. Because, at least when you talk about B2B, then people are not necessarily in market right now. Typically you say
Yeah.
like it's only like 1 to 3% of your total market that are out buying right now. And if
Yeah.
if that's true, then you just want to continuously stay up top of mind with top quality content that inspires them, makes them smarter, or makes them laugh. So
Yeah.
when they're at that point of time where they're looking to buy sandals or an ice cream or a B2B software, then it's your brand name that is on top there.
What you're saying makes complete sense. I also love that you're going away from funnel thinking. I probably will never go away from funnel thinking, but I'm right
No,
there
me
with
neither.
you. I know you kind of have to,
Yeah,
but I'm right there with you to think that it's as simple as going from the top to the bottom. I also think that there are a lot of just kind of marketing initiatives that are very top of funnel with the expectation of bottom of funnel performance, right? Like
yeah,
I am going to show them this ad and they are going to want to purchase. And then
yeah,
we're always forgetting this, like, why would they purchase based on this? Do
yeah,
you make purchases based on that? You don't. You make
yeah,
purchases
yeah,
after seeing something so often. So now, now my follow-up question to that is, while in theory that makes sense, I think as a marketer, we're in a really tough position to
mm,
say, hey, let's spend more time on the quality content. Let's spend more time on the brand awareness because it's going
yeah,
to feed into the customer journey that'll ultimately make the sale. So how am I going to prove marketing works?
yeah.
From a brand awareness perspective, if it's not bringing in the revenue right away? Or is there something I should start tracking with brand awareness so that I can
Mm.
tie it back to that revenue dollar?
Yeah, so I think actually one of the advices that I keep repeating is if you're in doubt whether something works,
Yeah.
it probably doesn't. If you don't have
Oh
that feeling that
no.
it's like the light starts blinking, or like you see your
Yeah.
web shop is like telling you there's more sales than usual, then like
Yeah.
if in absence of these things, you need to start thinking critical about whether it's a good idea you do this or not. But actually, then today, like a technical answer to what you're saying here is that there is actually starting to be a lot more technologies available that can help. I'm sure that at Grin you do some of these things as well,
Yeah.
but
Oh, for
there's this
sure.
thing as at that's called customer data platforms nowadays that can
Yeah.
continuously write down the behavior of what is Katya doing. So initially you would just be somebody anonymous, and then they'll keep a log of what are you doing while you're anonymous. And then
Yeah.
at some point, as you identify yourself, either when you complete a purchase order or download an ebook or whatever you do, then they get the identity of you that they can join together with what you did while you were anonymous, and
Yeah.
even with your consent to do it. So they actually you might have had 10 visits to that website before you bought anything, and they might actually have a logbook of those 10 visits. So
Yeah.
there are technical stuff that makes it easier nowadays, but again, it depends very much on how your buyer journeys are. So if I'm a Rolex or like Mercedes or something like that,
Yeah.
you know, try attributing sponsoring Wimbledon or like a Formula One race and stuff like
Exactly, exactly. I guess that's what I'm
that.
talking about. But you're
Yeah,
also talking about brands that have built up so much brand equity that their name is just synonymous with something, right?
yeah,
Like it's like Rolex, like that it's synonymous with like this class and all of that stuff. So I think for myself, I'm always wondering, obviously, like you said, we all want the sales, but what you're talking about,
mm,
that brand awareness and building brand equity, how do you prove out the value of this brand equity from a data standpoint?
yeah.
How do you prove that it's helping the customer move?
Mm. And I think here you need to keep it needs to kind of be like a game of ping pong between
Yeah.
what are the things that you're doing, what are the activities that you're carrying out, and what happens, in the time after.
Yeah.
And then you kind of continuously as a team need to talk about, we did these things, we saw this effect, now we're going back and trying some more of this thing. But I think it's us as marketers, we really really need to try to explain what's going on,
Yeah.
because it's our, we're spending a lot of money on behalf of the company, so we should also really really care about our activities, whether they're worth it or not.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely makes sense. What is and in your experience then, we've been talking about like the marketer's plight on attribution. But how do the sales and the marketing team need to connect or synergize? That sounds so cheesy.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
essentially,
yeah,
how do they need to connect so that they're working together and not like in silos? Does that question
yeah.
make sense?
Absolutely. This is something we talk a lot about in our company and in B2B in general, because in B2B, then marketing can only, attract or create the demand. They still
Yeah.
need the salespeople to talk to the customers and maybe go through months of negotiations and explaining before you sell anything.
Yeah.
So if those two people are not speaking to each other, you quite often risk coming into a very bad place.
Yeah.
We typically talk about the importance of uh, sales and marketing alignment, and what we basically mean by that is that we should actually, with our time and money, try to support each other. So,
Yeah.
like low practical examples can be the salesperson walking into the marketing room and telling the marketing people, "Look, the customer calls, the meetings I like the most are with companies that look like A, B, C, D. They're
Yeah.
this size, it's this role, and so forth. They're from California or they're from New York or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they very clearly describe these are the people I like to talk with,
Yeah.
and that the marketers need to go out and base whatever activities they're doing based on trying to attract this particular persona.
Yeah.
Because and on the opposite way, marketing can be attracting the perfect personas to sell to, but if the salespeople never actually pick up the phone or answer the emails that come in, then
Yeah.
all the money you put into marketing is probably or like are likely wasted. So it's kind of it's a responsibility on both sides to make sure that everybody's trying to pull into the same direction.
So I love that you're saying that because, well, I 100% believe that. I think it's a team effort. And so often,
Yeah.
marketing's left in this island of like, well, they're doing a lot of stuff. But how is that helping me as a salesperson, especially
Mm.
in B2B? What's the equivalent in B2C then is like listening to your customer? Is it
Mm.
understanding or B2C and even D2C, right? Like
Yeah.
what's the equivalent of connecting with your sales department? Is it connecting with like the exec level of or the overall like business strategy? What is that equivalent in B2C,
Yeah, that's a
D2C?
good question, Katya. And I think in the difference is in B2C, we as individuals can make the buying decision quite fast.
Yeah.
So the ads that we run, the post we buy from influencers, they actually have an immediate effect. So there's not always a salesperson involved
Yeah.
in this. So so the marketing activities should hopefully have an immediate effect on your revenue going up. People
Yeah.
coming into the web shop and buying certain items after you run the ads.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then at what kind of technology would I want to make sure that I have in place to be able to map out my customer journey so that I
Mm.
can really create that customer journey map that leads me down
Yeah.
to like the island of
So the
revenue.
nirvana.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Take me
I,
to this.
yeah, I think you want to think about actually if you think about a customer journey from like before anybody have heard about you until they've bought your product.
Yeah,
What are all the places that your brand are touching your customer?
mhm,
And if you have kind of if it doesn't leave a digital trace, the touches that you have with your customers, then
yeah,
it's very hard for you to map what's actually going on. So we can take some
mhm,
practical examples. Let's say you have a phone number on your website, and this phone number just goes into your own mobile phone,
yeah,
which doesn't leave any trace that you talk with Stefan on this date
yeah.
or anything like that. And then that touch, you can't really map it anywhere because it's not recorded. It could be that you just send emails from your personal Gmail account, not using a
Yeah.
marketing automation tool. Then you can't see which emails did you send to this customer, did they click it, etc.
Yeah.
The same with, I'm sure with Grin as well, that you get a good list of which influencers posted which piece of content for you, and if you actually don't have that trace that some of these things took place, then you can't go back and try to put all these pieces into the journey.
Yeah.
And then, like, what we do in, with our technology, but what people can do themselves as well, is that we pull all of this data into one data warehouse, into
Yeah.
one big bucket. And then we try to sketch out a timeline of this took place on this date, and then the next day we saw them was this date. So you can try to, like, pull out the data out of all the silos and map into one timeline.
Well, and as a marketer, I think I just love data warehouses because I'm pulling because I'm pulling from 12 different places, right? Because
Yeah.
me, I think of it from a distribution channel standpoint. If I've got my
Mm.
influencers in one, I also have my email strategy, I have my website strategy, I have my
Yeah.
experiential strategy, right? With events and
Mm.
whatnot. And then I've got my entire like paid advertising. All and
Yeah.
maybe on top of that, there's CRO, and on top of that,
Mm.
there are other initiatives, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like the best solution is to pull all of that information. If not, it sounds like you would be living in a ginormous spreadsheet
Yeah.
of
Yeah. It's never
I've
gonna
pulled it from here,
end
I've
happy.
pulled it from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
So,
point did
like, basically any interaction you have with the customers, try to make it have a digital reflection. And once you have that in place, get it all into one place and start cleaning it up and organizing it so you can see what's actually going on.
what how do you feel about the iOS update and like marketers living that cookieless life? Because you're talking about having that digital footprint, and then
Yeah.
there's this real worry, especially from like something that has worked before in the past, all of these paid
Yeah.
social and like
Yeah.
these
Yeah. Yeah.
programmatic things. So what do you say to that?
I remember the good old days where, like, you could retarget on Facebook for 180 days. So
Amazing, right?
it was hard not to make marketing work for a short period, because you could just
Yeah.
put traffic on your website and then retarget for 180 days on Facebook. So I miss these days. I think that those who I think forever it's going to be a little bit of a cat and mouse game of,
Yeah.
different things stop working and other things starts working. I think those who are most in trouble are actually the ad platforms, because ad
Mhm.
platforms per se sit on the outside, trying
Yeah.
to understand what takes place on the website and what revenue comes out of it. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like, with these customer data platforms, they sit in the middle, and then they can look at the click came from Facebook, and then they went on to buy inside the Shopify e-commerce system.
Yeah.
Whereas Facebook is on the outside, they might have a pixel on your website, but that gets deleted super fast.
Yeah.
So there is, I think I'm seeing more and more solutions to this pain, but not for the ad platforms.
No,
And I
RIP.
follow different kind of podcasts as well to try to get smarter on it all the time.
Well, I think it's tough. For me, I'm always going to push more influencer marketing because
Yeah,
that's evergreen. It doesn't have to have a cookie. People are
agree.
people are watching people.
Yeah,
That's
I was just about to
ultimately.
say, like, if you just make sure that the audience is the right audience for your company,
Mhm.
then you don't have to, like, one to one measure everything. As long as it's the right people who continuously gets the right message, then
Yeah,
you're bound to see it working at some point.
that's true. That's very true.
Or you
So
have a bad product or stuff like that.
well, then there's a whole other list of things that you needed to go through. It's not
Yeah,
always marketing. It is the
no.
product, it's the company, it's the values, it's all the whole
Yeah,
9
it's not
yards.
all our fault, all of it.
It's not, I promise. Okay, so at this point, it's prediction time. I'd love to hear what you see just kind of changing for marketers in like the next year or two. What kind of changes do you see?
So I think it seems like that this economic turmoil. I don't know how it is in the bubble in your industry, but in our, like, tech startup industry, there's a lot of concerns about this economic turmoil coming up. And I think, if there's less budgets, less optimism, we're going to see a bigger and bigger push for stuff like attribution, or like more
Yeah.
plainly explained, why are we spending money on these things?
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
what are we getting out of spending money here? So like a push for efficiency out of all activities that goes for sales, product, and marketing. And I think, like, as this episode comes out, I think if you're not already starting about thinking about how to prove the value of your work, you should definitely start, because the worst situation is that you're like caught off guard, and then the CFO comes and
Yeah.
say, I think we're gonna cut your budget with 50%, and you're like, okay. So you need to like assume that responsibility of explaining, we're doing these things and we're doing it because this and this, and I think we see
Yeah.
this kind of outcome of it. So be prepared for efficiency questions about everything you do.
I love that prediction because it is true. You have to not just prove that you are getting revenue, but there is a method to the madness. There's a reason that you're, going down this path as a marketer. It could be brand awareness, it could be building
Mm,
brand equity, but you have to be able to, like, to your point earlier on, as you said, have that, the qualitative with the quantitative as well too. And sometimes it's a little more balance on the qualitative side. Like, this is the, look at all of these places that we're at, this name recognition, like
mm.
this provides value, this is why we're doing it.
It could also be like, maybe I could imagine, like, if you do it well with the right influencers, then you start also seeing micro influencers coming inbound asking for, can I
Absolutely. Ooh,
also, so like, take
that's a good
screenshots of
point.
those mails
Yeah.
that come as a like qualitative proof that we're definitely getting our product shown for in front of the right,
Yeah.
or through the right people.
Oh, I love that. We're getting more inbound. I do. I
Yeah.
have a lot of love this early in the morning as we're recording, but I mean,
The coffee is working.
it is. It's working. I had a little cough attack earlier. Now I'm prepped. I've got coffee in my system. But it is true. I mean, and that, I think that that's a very great qualitative way to show that what you're doing from an awareness standpoint
Yeah.
really does impact. I think from an influencer side, for sure, like, hey, we're getting more inbound requests to
Mm.
partner with us. But I also think at at a more macro level for any brand, it's your direct traffic to your website, right? Like, you should
Yes.
see those numbers elevate if you're
Yeah.
building up that brand equity, and it's taking a look at
I
all of
agree.
those channels as well too. Well, Stefan,
100%.
this has been fantastic, enlightening. I appreciate you. I know we have moved this around a few times, so I really appreciate you taking the time just to kind of come and talk to me about, marketing and the
Yeah.
customer journey.
Favorite topic.
Same.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Katya.